At the Westvale hearing, my father pointed at me before the press. She took everything. I want it all. He demanded the company I rebuilt, the patents, and my reputation. I didn't argue. I just whispered 2 words to the court clerk. 2 words that made the judge freeze, her face draining of all color. The case was no longer his. It belonged to the truth. My name is Arden Vale. I am 32 years old, and I am the Director of Ethics and Risk Management for Hearthline Labs, as of this Monday morning, 9:03 a.m. I am also the defendant in Vale vs. Vale, a civil action filed in the Grayford County Courthouse. The room itself is an act of institutional depression. It smells like failure, a specific, layered scent that penetrates the fabric of my suit. It's the sour milk tang of old paper files decaying in damp archives. The sharp, stinging ammonia of industrial cleaner used to scrub the terrazzo floors. And underlying it all, the faint, dusty smell of cheap wool and metabolized human anxiety. The air is cold, not a fresh cold, but a stale, recirculated chill, stirred by an overworked HVAC system that hums a low, oppressive B-flat, a sound designed to fray the nerves before the first gavel strike. The light is the worst part. It's not the warm, judicious sunlight you see in legal dramas, filtering symbolically through Venetian blinds. It's the flat, buzzing glare of long-tube fluorescent bulbs, recessed in the acoustic tile ceiling. They cast a sickly, greenish-white pallor over everything. This light makes the oak veneer paneling look like plastic. It makes the American flag in the corner look drained of its color. And it makes the faces of every person in this room look haggard, guilty, or at least exhausted. I hear the sound before I see him. The sharp, expensive, unwavering click-clack of hand-welted leather shoes on the stone floor. It's a sound of absolute confidence, of ownership, of a man who believes the ground rearranges itself to meet his stride. It's a sound I grew up hearing on polished hardwood floors at 2 a.m, the signal that he was home, and that the atmosphere of the house had to recalibrate around him. I sit behind the heavy, scarred defendant's table. My posture is a fortress. My spine is straight. My hands are folded, resting lightly on top of a single, 3-inch thick black binder. It is the only thing I brought. My lawyer, Kalen, sits to my left. He's a knot of nervous energy, all sharp elbows and tightly combed dark hair, his pen tapping a silent, frantic rhythm on a yellow legal pad. He smells faintly of coffee and antacids. Then, my father enters, and the room's weak gravity tilts in his direction. Graham Vale, 58 years old, plaintiff. He doesn't just walk into a room, he seizes it. He stands by his table, projecting a robust, aggrieved vitality. His suit is a custom-tailored navy wool, dark enough to be somber but cut so sharply it screams retained authority. The tie is crimson silk, a statement, the red tie of battle, a pathetic cliché he's subscribed to his entire career. He looks magnificent, tanned, even in the Westvale autumn, silver streaking his temples perfectly, his jaw set. He is the very picture of the wronged patriarch, the pillar of the community forced into this distasteful, heartbreaking necessity. He is the former president of North River Wellness, and he wears that word, former, like a martyr's shroud. He turns, briefly, scanning the room. His eyes, the same gray-blue as mine, meet my gaze across the 30 feet of no man's land. There is no recognition, no family, no flicker of regret. It is a purely strategic assessment, the way he'd look at an asset on a balance sheet he was about to liquidate. This is a case of blatant, calculated theft. His lawyer, Sloan, begins. Sloan is the opposite of my father, where Graham is sleek, surgical, and cold. Sloan is loud, florid, and hot. He booms, a trained orator using the courtroom's high, indifferent ceilings to amplify his indignation. We are here today to ask for a declaratory judgment. We ask this court, he gestures grandly to the bench, to affirm that the defendant, Ms. Arden Vale, holds her current position and all attendant shares at Hearthline Labs in what is known as a constructive trust for the true owner, the man whose life's work she exploited. He wants my job. He wants my equity. He wants the 40,000 shares I vested last year. He wants to void the stock agreements I earned, the ones I negotiated as compensation for building an entire risk management framework from scratch. A framework whose sole purpose is to prevent the kind of malfeasance he perfected. Sloane paces, his movements rehearsed. My client, Graham Vale, a titan of this community, mentored his daughter, he opened doors, he gave her opportunities, he nurtured her career. And how did she repay that trust? How did she repay that generosity? He taps a button on a remote. A large monitor beside the jury box flickers to life. Exhibit A, we will show, definitively and without question, how Miss Vale used proprietary data, trade secrets, and confidential strategic plans, all embezzled from North River Wellness, to build her entire division at a direct competitor. She leveraged stolen intellectual property to secure the very stock agreements she now brazenly claims are hers. She didn't earn it. She stole it. She robbed him. Plain and simple. The evidence is a PowerPoint slide, a collection of emails, allegedly from me, graphs I recognize from my old presentations, now stripped of context, memos, all designed to look damning, to paint a picture of calculated corporate espionage. The irony is so acidic, it burns my throat. I am the director of ethics. My entire professional identity is built on transparency, process, and control. He is accusing me of the very things I spent 3 years at North River trying to stop him from doing, until I realized he wasn't a bug in the system. He was the system. I feel the eyes on me, dozens of them. I don't have to look to know the press row is full. I can hear the soft, furious scratch, scratch, scratch of pens on steno pads. The Norcrest Ledger's veteran court reporter, hunched over, smelling of stale cigars. The Stonebrook Daily's new hire, younger, probably live tweeting this. They've been circling the North River collapse for months, sniffing for fraud. A father suing his daughter? This is better than fraud. This is a dynasty crumbling. This is local news gold. I hear the muffled click-thwack of a DSLR camera from the aisle, violating the court's decorum. They're getting their shots. The accused daughter, the powerful, grieving father. Order. The voice of Judge Marjorie Keene cuts through the theater like a wire. It's a deep, resonant contralto, a voice that commands attention without ever needing to be raised. It's a voice that has seen everything. Counselor Sloane, you will present your opening. You will not testify. Confine yourself to what you intend to prove. I allow myself to look at her, the center of this cold room. She is perhaps 60, her dark hair pulled back in a steel gray bun. Her face is lined, not with softness, but with the weariness of someone who has heard every lie imaginable and is impressed by none of them. She is polite, but it is the rigid, unbending politeness of surgical steel. She's watching Sloane, but I feel her gaze flick to me, assessing. She's looking for the cracks, for the telltale sign of guilt or fear. I offer none. My face is a mask of procedural calm. This is my professional face. And the gallery will be silent, she adds, her eyes sweeping the press row with a look that could freeze water. This is a court of law, not a stadium. The next camera I hear will be confiscated. The shuffling stops instantly. Kalen leans in, his whisper so quiet it's barely a vibration against the HVAC hum. Arden, that email chain is fabricated. I'm looking at the exhibit list. The metadata is all wrong. The UTC timestamps are impossible. I know, I whisper back. My gaze does not leave the judge. It's fine. It's not fine, it's perjury. It's predictable. I cut him off, still in a whisper. My defense isn't an argument. It's a document. It's the physical object my hands are resting on. The binder in front of me isn't theater. It's math. Inside that 3-ring black binder is the truth, cold and itemized. Every audit log from my final year at North River, every server request associated with my credentials, Timestamped. The complete third-party verified chain of custody report for the data migration. Signed and dated before I ever signed an offer letter with Hearthline Labs. It contains the server logs I subpoenaed, showing an unauthorized, high-level access IP address pinging the North River servers 2 nights after I left. An IP address I had already traced back to a shell corporation, a holding company my father controls. He is presenting a story, full of emotion and betrayal. I am holding a ledger. In a contest between narrative and numbers, I've staked my entire life on the numbers. Sloan finishes his opening salvo with a flourish, a final pointed finger in my direction, and retreats to his table. There is a procedural pause. The air crackles. Judge Keene makes a note on her monitor, her face impassive. In that pocket of manufactured silence, my father looks at me again. He has the room's attention. He knows it. He leans towards Sloan, but his voice is a stage whisper, an actor's trick, calibrated perfectly to carry to my table and to the eager ears in the front row of the press. She's just a lucky employee. He smiles. It's not a fatherly smile. It's thin, cold, and deeply patronizing. It's the smile he used when I'd present a risk analysis report and he'd pat my head and call it cute. Got in way over her head. The air in the room compresses. It becomes thick, unbreathable, suffocating. This isn't just a lawsuit. It's a public execution of my credibility. He's stripping me of my agency, my expertise, my entire career. He's painting me as an incompetent child who played with her father's toys and broke them. Kalen stiffens beside me, his knuckles white on his pen. He's about to rise, his mouth forming the O of objection. He wants to object to the performance, the badgering, the sheer, calculated cruelty of it. I place my left hand gently on his forearm. A single, light pressure. Stay down. He freezes, looking at me, confused. I don't react. I don't blink. I hold my father's gaze. The smile wavers, just slightly, when I don't give him the satisfaction of anger, or humiliation, or tears. He expected me to flush, to look away. I do not. I simply turn my eyes back to the judge, as if he hadn't spoken, as if he were nothing more than a buzzing fly. I recite the words in my head, the mantra that got me through the last 6 months of depositions, threats, and sleepless nights spent correlating data logs. Don't argue, just follow procedure. He thinks this room is his stage. He thinks the press is his audience and the law is his script. He thinks Judge Keene is just another board member he can charm or bully. He's wrong. This room is a laboratory, and I have the data. The procedure is all I need. It is slow, and it is cold, but it is absolute, and it is about to have its turn. His smile, that thin, patronizing smile. I've known it my entire life. It's the same smile he gave me across the polished mahogany dining table at 417 Willow Run Drive, the house where I learned that family was just a more sophisticated word for leverage. Our childhood was an exercise in aesthetic perfection. The lawn was an unnervingly uniform carpet of emerald green. The white picket fence was repainted every spring, whether it needed it or not, and dinner was served at 6:30 p.m., not 6:29, not 6:31. At 6:30, the 3 of us, my father, my mother, and I, would sit, and the performance would begin. Excellent report card. Arden, my father would say, unfolding his starched linen napkin and placing it in his lap. A 98 in calculus. Well done. It was never, I'm proud of you. It was, well done. It was the feedback one gives to a promising subordinate. The compliments were as precisely scheduled as the meals, tied directly to quantifiable achievements. A piano recital, flawless. A debate tournament, won. A science fair, first place. Affection was a bonus paid out for performance. My father, Graham Vale, had a favorite saying, one he'd deploy with a warm theatrical sigh at those 6:30 dinners, especially when he had to cancel a weekend trip for a board emergency. Family first, work second, he'd say, raising his glass of Pinot Noir. Always remember that, Arden, at the end of the day, all this. He'd gesture vaguely at the immaculate, joyless room. This is what matters. He was, of course, lying. It was a brilliant lie, the cornerstone of his entire personal brand. Family first, work second, was the motto. But the unspoken addendum was, unless the work is my work, in which case it is the only thing that has ever mattered. His work was North River Wellness. He was North River Wellness. He built it, as he so often reminded us. From nothing, which is to say, he built it from my grandfather's seed money and a series of ruthless, borderline unethical acquisitions. He was charming, visionary, and utterly devoid of a moral core. My mother understood the transaction. She was, for 15 years, the perfect corporate wife. She hosted the fundraisers, laughed at the right jokes, and wore the right jewelry. Her reward was the house on Willow Run, the club membership, and a life of curated, respectable emptiness. And then, when I was 15, she simply stopped. It wasn't dramatic. There was no shouting, no slammed doors. That would have been messy. And the veils were never messy. She simply negotiated her exit. One day she was there, arranging flowers. The next, her lawyer was speaking to his lawyer, and her closets were empty. She moved to California. She sends me polite, generically worded birthday cards. I stayed, not because I loved him, or because I felt any loyalty. I stayed because I was 15, and I was already the risk analyst I am today. I understood the system. Leaving meant being cast out with nothing, into a world I wasn't prepared for. Staying meant I remained inside his frame of reference. It meant I had access to his resources, his library, and most importantly, I could study him. A predator is the best teacher of defense. He taught me everything I know about ethics. He taught me by having none. He taught me by example. I was 17 when he took me to the country club. He was in a high-stakes game with a potential investor. His ball landed in the rough, just behind a small tuft of grass. He waited until his partners were looking at the green, then casually nudged the ball 2 inches to the left with the side of his cleat. He saw me watching. He winked. Later, at the clubhouse, he put his arm around me, his voice that warm, conspiratorial baritone. You see, Arden, the rules are for the other people, the ones who don't have the vision. Ethics, real ethics, isn't about following the rulebook. It's about knowing why you're the exception to it. He'd smile that smile, the one he was giving me in the courtroom. I'm the exception. You're just a lucky employee. I took his lessons to heart. I went to college. I got my MBA. I specialized in finance and then, to his eternal confusion, in corporate compliance and forensic accounting. He wanted me to join North River. He wanted his protégé by his side. I said no. That was the first time I truly defied him. It was quiet, but it was absolute. Hearthline Labs? He'd scoffed, swirling a brandy. They're a glorified data entry firm. Arden, they're obsessed with process. They'll never have the vision. You're wasting your talent. I like process, Dad, I'd said. He was right. Hearthline Labs was obsessed with process. That's why I loved it. It was the antidote to him. It was a world of rules that applied to everyone, of immutable server logs, of checks and balances. It was a system that could not be charmed. At 26, I started as a mid-level controller. I wasn't lucky. I was relentless. I worked 80-hour weeks. I didn't play golf. I wrote code. I didn't do steak dinners. I did deep dive audits. I was the quiet, tireless engine in the basement, the one who found the discrepancies, the one who closed the loopholes. I built their risk management framework from the ground up. I became the director of ethics and risk management because I was the only one who understood that the real danger isn't the hacker you see. It's the executive who thinks he's the exception. I built my firewalls. He continued building his back doors. And then, inevitably, his world began to catch up with him. The North River Wellness Empire, built on charm and handshake deals and creative accounting, started to shudder. An anonymous whistleblower, A brave soul I'll never know, tipped off the regulators. An internal investigation was launched, this one with real teeth. The board was getting nervous. The stock was slipping. The call came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the time exactly, because I was awake, correlating data for a quarterly report. Arden, sweetheart. His voice was different, not the booming patriarch. It was the wheedling, conspiratorial voice, the country club voice. I wouldn't call so late, but I have a small systems problem, a bookkeeping glitch. I sat up in my bed. The fluorescent glow of my laptop illuminated my dark apartment. What kind of glitch, Dad? Just a misallocation, a consulting fee that was coded incorrectly. It's confusing the auditors. You're so good with these systems. Arden, you understand how these things look. I need you to look at it. Tell me how to recharacterize it. I knew exactly what he was asking. Recharacterize was his word for backdate. Fix was his word for falsify. He wanted me to use my expertise to help him hide a bribe. I was silent. I listened to the faint static on the line, the sound of his breathing. Arden, listen to me. You owe me. There it was, the transaction, the core of our entire relationship. I gave you everything, he whispered, his voice gaining a hard, desperate edge. The house, the schools, the name. I put you where you are. Don't you dare forget that. You owe me. I held the phone to my ear for one long second. I thought about 417 Willow Run. I thought about my mother's empty closets. I thought about the golf ball moving 2 inches in the grass. Then, I pressed the end button. I disconnected the call. I sat in the dark for a minute. Then I turned back to my laptop. I opened a new file, encrypted and firewalled. I wrote a memo, documenting the time of the call, the nature of his request, and his attempt to suborn a director at another firm. I filed it, officially, with my own company's compliance department the next morning. It was a procedural matter. He had tried to breach my firewall. I had logged the attempt. A month later, he was forced out. The internal investigation found the glitch, without my help to hide it. The rot was exposed. Graham Vale, the titan of the community, lost his chairmanship. He lost his seat on the board. His script had failed, so he started writing a new one, the one being performed by his lawyer, Sloan, in this courtroom today. If he couldn't control me, he would annihilate me. He would take back the everything he believed he had given me. He would strip me of my job, my shares, and my name, using the one weapon he had left, a public performance of the grieving, betrayed father. The rumors started a week after his ouster. A whisper campaign, perfectly executed. My aunts, my uncles, his business contacts. Did you hear about Arden? So ungrateful. He was in trouble, and she just abandoned him. After everything he did for her, she wouldn't even take his call. Cold. I knew the narrative. I had been cast as the villain. I stayed silent. I didn't defend myself at family gatherings I no longer attended. I didn't issue statements. I gathered evidence. I kept my 2:17 a.m. memo. I backed up my old North River files to encrypted hard drives. I paid a private firm to pull the incorporation papers for shell companies I suspected he used. I started my black binder. My father spent my entire life polishing the facade of our family. He shined the front door, mowed the lawn, and presented a perfect, clean, respectable home to the world. He forgot that I was the one who had the keys to the cellar. He forgot I was the one who installed the locks. He forgot that I know exactly where the bodies are buried, because I'm the one who watched him bury them. A family that looks that clean always has a very, very dark storage room, and he just invited the entire world and a court of law to watch me open the door. The lawsuit is a masterpiece of malicious fiction. Sloan, my father's attorney, is now at the lectern, his voice dripping with manufactured outrage as he outlines the charges. Civil action 22-914, Vale v. Vale. Count 1, unlawful conversion and transfer of intellectual property. Count 2, tortious interference with prospective business advantage. In plain English, He's accusing me of stealing Northriver's strategic plans and client lists, walking them over to Hearthline Labs, and using that stolen data to tortiously interfere with a merger he was allegedly planning. He's claiming my entire career at Hearthline, my equity, my position, are all fruit of a poisonous tree, his tree. To the gallery, to the reporters scribbling furiously, it sounds plausible. A vindictive daughter, a corporate betrayal. It's the perfect narrative. And we have the proof. Sloan booms, signaling for the monitor to light up again. Let's look at Exhibit A. On the screen, a new-looking email appears. It's dated 2 years ago, allegedly sent from my old Northriver address to my new, personal email. The subject, FW, Project Catalyst, Phase 2. The body text is simple. For review, attached is a 50-page PDF, the exact strategic plan he claims I stole. An email, Your Honor, Sloan says, his voice soft with pity. Sent by the defendant, to the defendant, a direct transfer of confidential, proprietary, trade secret level data. He moves on. And if that weren't enough, Exhibit B. A new document replaces the email, a consulting agreement. It's between a known Northriver competitor and me. It's dated 3 months before I officially resigned from Northriver. It promises $75,000 for strategic market analysis, and at the bottom, there is a looping, confident signature, Arden Vale. She was working for the enemy, Your Honor, Sloan declares. While taking her father's paycheck, she was selling his secrets to the highest bidder. This is an open and shut case. The courtroom is silent. The air is heavy. I can feel Kalen's anxiety radiating off him. He's shuffling papers, ready to object, to fight. I, however, am perfectly calm. I am looking at 2 ghosts, and I know exactly how they were made. Let's start with the machine. My father thinks a lawsuit is a story. I know it's a machine, and like any machine, you can dismantle it if you know where the bolts are. I spent the entire discovery phase not building a counter-narrative, but simply taking his machine apart, piece by piece. Let's look at Exhibit A, the email, a printout of an email, in a court of law. This is functionally useless, but it's great for theater. The real email, the data file itself, is what matters. I subpoenaed the original file from the Northriver mail server archives. The printout says it was sent at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but the file's metadata, its digital DNA, tells a different story. The creation time stamp, the indelible moment the file was born, is 03 UTC, Coordinated Universal Time. That's 11 p.m. Eastern, not 4:30 p.m. Worse, the file's last modified timestamp is 2 years after its alleged sent date. This email didn't exist 2 years ago. It was fabricated, likely within the last 6 months, specifically for this lawsuit. Someone with admin access, someone like my father, or his IT lackey, went into the server, created a new file, and manually backdated the sent field. It's the digital equivalent of writing a letter today, dating it 1955 and claiming it's an antique. It's crude, and it's pathetic. My analysis of it is in tab 1 of my binder. Now, let's look at Exhibit B, the consulting contract. This one is more artful, a physical document, a wet signature. He knows I'm a digital expert, so he tried to beat me in the analog world. He failed. The moment I saw that signature during discovery, I knew. I spent an afternoon with my bank manager, pulling every signature card I've ever signed, my driver's license, my passport application, my mortgage documents. My signature is my own. It's fast, fluid, an artifact of a busy life. When I sign Arden, the A is a sharp, unlooped upstroke, and the N at the end flows directly into the V of Vale. The signature on that contract is a drawing. It's a careful, meticulous imitation. The pen pressure is all wrong. The A is looped and heavy. The ink pooled where the forger hesitated, trying to get the shape right. The stroke is shaky. The ink bled into the cheap paper. It's the hand of someone looking at my name, not the hand of being me. My detailed forensic graphology report is in tab 2. These forgeries are the pillars of his entire case, and I have the receipts to prove they are counterfeit. But how they were made is, for me, the most telling part. I have the server logs, not just from the mail server, but from the main building's network access controller. On a Tuesday night, 3 days after my 2:17 a.m. phone call with my father, the one where I refused to fix his books, his high-level admin credentials were used to log into the North River system. The login time was 2:17 a.m. The IP address wasn't remote. It resolved to a specific workstation in the old North River Executive Wing, a building that was, at that hour, supposed to be empty and locked. He didn't just decide to sue me when he got fired. He planned this. He stayed up all night, in a dark, empty office, planting the seeds of my destruction, fabricating the evidence he would need to punish me for my insubordination. He was building his revenge while I was documenting his crimes. This is where my professionalism became my greatest weapon. I didn't just find these things, I processed them. I didn't touch the original server data. Instead, I hired Halden and Pike, the most ruthless and respected independent auditing firm in the state. I paid them out of my own pocket. They went in, under a discovery order, and they performed a full forensic imaging of the North River servers. They, not me, extracted the email file. They, not me, pulled the network logs. Every piece of evidence in my black binder is sealed, certified, and bulletproof. I didn't just take screenshots. I captured full disk images. I didn't just download files. I ran SHA-256 hashes on every single one. A SHA-256 hash is a 64-character digital fingerprint. If a single comma in a 500-page document is changed, that fingerprint changes completely. My hash values, certified by Halden and Pike, match the originals. His printouts are inadmissible jokes. This is why I let Sloan finish his opening statement. It's why I didn't file a motion to dismiss based on fraudulent evidence. That would have been quiet, handled in chambers. My father wanted a spectacle. He wanted the Norcrest Ledger and the Stonebrook Daily. He wanted to humiliate me in public. So, I'm giving him exactly what he wants. I am letting him build his entire, flammable, perjurious case in the bright, unforgiving fluorescent light of this courtroom. I am letting him climb to the very top of his stage, built on lies. Because my father believes this courtroom is his theater. He thinks he's the star. Sloan is his co-star, and Judge Keene is the critic he needs to win over. He doesn't understand. This isn't a theater. It's a laboratory. And I am the one controlling the experiment. My black binder contains the complete, itemized, and certified truth. It contains the tools to dismantle his case, screw by screw, until nothing is left. It is my shield. But it's not my only document. Beside the binder, on the scarred wooden table, is a single manila envelope. It's thick. It is sealed not with a clasp, but with 2 distinct circles of dark red wax. Stamped onto the still warm wax was my own personal sigil, a simple AV. It is addressed to the court itself, and typed neatly on the front, in 12-point Times New Roman, is a single line. To be opened only by order of the court. This envelope is not my shield. It is not my defense. It is my sword, and it is waiting. My black binder is my defense. It is a shield, forged of certified data, designed to parry the clumsy, fraudulent attacks of my father's lawsuit. It will win my case. But the wax-sealed manila envelope is my offense. It is a separate, parallel operation. It has nothing to do with Vail v. Vail. It has nothing to do with my stock options or intellectual property. It is the result of a different, colder investigation that began at 2:17 a.m. with a phone call from a desperate man. When my father asked me to recharacterize a glitch, I knew it wasn't a hypothetical. He was sloppy, panicked. He was pointing me toward a specific fire he was trying to put out. He didn't know that as a risk manager. I keep my own private audit logs of high-risk accounts. I had a whole list of them. After I hung up on him, I started digging. Where was his glitch? It wasn't in the main payroll, not in T&E. It was where I expected. buried in a subledger of a small regional bank North River used for community outreach in Norcrest County, a quiet, sleepy bank. There it was, a series of non-standard wire transfers. The recipient was not a major vendor. The name was bland, forgettable, designed to be overlooked. Oak Ridge Fund, LLC. The descriptions were textbook vagueness. Consulting fees, market analysis, strategic integration. The total over the last 3 years, nearly $500,000. This was his slush fund. My first step? I ran Oak Ridge Fund, LLC through the Delaware Division of Corporations database. It was exactly what I expected. A ghost, a shell company formed 3 years ago. It listed a registered agent in Wilmington and nothing else. No officers, no directors, no physical footprint. It was a digital bucket, designed to receive money and make it disappear. This is where most people would stop. A Delaware shell is a black box. But I am not most people. I am my father's daughter, which means I know how he thinks. He's arrogant. He's lazy. He cuts corners. He would have tied this shell to his operations somewhere, confident no one would ever look. I didn't try to crack the shell. I looked at the world around it. I pulled every SEC filing, every quarterly report, every partnership addendum North River had filed in the last 5 years. I spent a weekend, fueled by black coffee and cold fury, feeding them into a data analysis program, searching for a single instance of the string Oak Ridge. I found it, not in a main filing, but in an obscure footnote on an addendum to a Q3 report, 2 years old. It was an error, a moment of corporate secretary laziness. In a list of special-purpose entities, someone had copy-pasted a line from an internal memo. It read, Oak Ridge Fund, LLC, COH, K, Holdings, MGR. It was a mistake, a crack. It was all I needed. H, L, K, Holdings. This one was not a Delaware ghost. It was a domestic LLC, registered right here in Grayford County. I pulled the Articles of Organization from the Secretary of State's website. It took 30 seconds and a $10 fee. The registered agent and sole principal, Harold L. Keene. My hands went numb. The air left my lungs. I knew that name. Harold Hal Keene. He was a local investor. He sat on charity boards. He played golf. He was a fixture at the kind of fundraisers my father used to dominate. And he was, and is, the husband of the Honorable Judge Marjorie Keene, the woman presiding over my case. I shut down my laptop. I walked to my kitchen and poured a glass of water. But my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't drink it. This wasn't a simple case of a father hiding money. This was systematic, high-level judicial compromise. My father hadn't just filed a lawsuit against me. He'd routed it. He had specifically filed in Grayford County, knowing it would almost certainly land on Judge Keene's docket. He wasn't just suing me. He was suing me in a court he had purchased. I spent the next 3 days building the map. This was a financial thriller, and I was the only one who could see the plot. The data wasn't just data anymore. It was a diagram, a flowchart of corruption. Node 1, North River Wellness, my father, Graham Vale, authorizes payment from the Norcrest Bank ledger. Node 2, The Wire. I traced the most recent payment, the glitch he was so worried about. It was for $185,000. Sent 2 months ago. The description, Final Renovation Consultation. Node 3, Oak Ridge Fund, LLC, Delaware. The shell, the money lands here, sits for 24 hours, a digital laundry. Node 4, HLK Holdings, Grayford. The money moves, a capital distribution from Oak Ridge to its managing partner, Harold Keene's company. Node 5, the Keenes. How does it get from Harold's company to the judge? I checked the county assessor's database. 10 weeks ago, 1 week after the $185,000 payment left North River, a construction permit was finalized for the Keenes' primary residence. The stated cost of the project, $185,000. It was listed as a home improvement loan from H. holdings to Harold and Marjorie Keene. He didn't even bother to change the numbers. My father hadn't just paid for a favorable ruling, he had paid for Judge Keene's new kitchen. He had paid for her heated marble floors. This was not the first time. The $185,000 was just the biggest, loppiest payment. I went back, cross-referencing Northriver's payments to Oak Ridge with Judge Keene's docket. A $25,000 community donation left Northriver on May 10th. On May 12th, Judge Keene dismissed a supplier lawsuit against Northriver. A $50,000 consulting fee left Northriver on September 1st. On September 8th, Judge Keene granted summary judgment in my father's favor in a patent dispute. A $40,000 consulting fee left Northriver on December 5th. On December 8th, Judge Keene sealed a deposition from a former Northriver CFO, citing privacy concerns. It was a subscription, a pattern of behavior, and the $185,000 was the premium payment, likely to secure her cooperation in the pièce de résistance, the public destruction of his own daughter. I sat in my apartment for a long time, looking at this map of filth. The binder at my side could win my case. This new file. This could send half a dozen people to prison. It could end a judge's career. I am the director of ethics. My entire life is procedure. I knew I could not, would not, walk into that courtroom and use this to blackmail her. I would not settle with my father. Holding this over his head. That's what he would do. I did this by the book. I consolidated the evidence, the bank transfer logs, the Delaware filing, the Grayford LLC filing for H, L, K, Holdings, the county property records, the renovation permit, the court dockets from the previous cases. I wrote no summary. I made no accusations. I drew no conclusions. I simply laid the facts out in chronological order, an irrefutable, undeniable timeline of cash and favors. Then, I logged onto the secure, encrypted portal for the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. I filed a formal complaint. I attached the entire 50-page file as evidence. I did not file it anonymously. I signed it, Arden Vale, Director of Ethics, Hearthline Labs. I stood by my data. 2 days later, I received an encrypted email. They had received the file. An investigation was being opened. They gave me a receipt, a case identification number, JQC 441A. That is what is in the wax-sealed envelope. It's a copy of the key documents, the money map, the wire transfer to Oak Ridge, the LLC filing for H, L, K, Holdings, the renovation permit with Harold and Marjorie Keene's names on it, and on a single, separate sheet of paper, my official case receipt from the commission. Kalen, my lawyer, knows nothing about it. He knows about the binder, about the forged emails, about my defense. He does not know about the envelope. Kalen, I told him this morning, before we entered the courtroom. What is it? He'd asked, his eyes darting, nervous. At some point, I may tap your arm. If I do, you will immediately stand and request a sidebar. You will cite potential judicial conflict and nothing else. You will not look surprised. You will not ask questions. You will just do it. Do you understand? He swallowed, looked at my face, and saw that I was not asking. Yes, I understand. My father thinks this is his show. He thinks he's built a stage, gathered an audience, and written a script where he's the hero. He doesn't know that he's performing in a condemned building. He doesn't know that the wrecking ball is already on its way. He thinks I'm here to trade blows with him, to argue about emails and signatures. He's expecting me to flip the table. But I am a risk manager. I don't flip tables. That's messy, unpredictable. I just unplug the power supply. Sloan is at the lectern, his body a performance of righteous indignation. He's a large man, and he uses his physical presence as an instrument, leaning over the podium, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial rumble that forces the gallery to lean in. This is not, he says, a complicated case. This is a story of creation and a story of usurpation. His hand, fleshy and adorned with a heavy gold ring, gestures first to my father. Here is the creator, Graham Vale, a man who poured his life, his sweat, his genius into building a community institution, North River Wellness. My father looks down, the picture of humble, misunderstood gravitas. Sloane's hand then whips around, the finger pointing directly at me. It's an accusation. And there is the usurper, his own daughter, who took that genius, that proprietary data, that strategy, and he pauses, letting the word hang in the stale, fluorescent air. She stole it. She took it to a competitor, Hearthline Labs, and passed it off as her own, leveraging her father's work to claim millions in unearned equity. The attack is crude, but effective. It's a narrative the press can print without needing a dictionary. Father builds, daughter steals. You saw the evidence, Sloane continues, his voice rising. Exhibit A. The monitor buzzes to life. There it is. The fabricated email. It fills the screen, stark in black and white. From Vale, Arden, Aval, northriver.com, sent, Tuesday, April 14th, 2:38 p.m. to Arden V. Arden, Vale, private@gmail.com. Subject, FW, Project Catalyst, Phase 2. Attachment, Project Catalyst Strategy. Final. PDF. Body for review. It's so simple, so clean. It looks utterly damning. In the press row, the dam of silence breaks. A photographer in the aisle, the same one from this morning, lifts his DSLR. The click-thwack of the shutter is sharp, followed by the electronic whine of the flash recharging. It's the sound of a narrative solidifying, of ink being spilled. The Norcrest Ledger reporter is scribbling so hard, I'm surprised his pen doesn't tear the paper. Sloane lets the image burn into the retinas of the room. Open and shut. Kalen rises. His voice is calm, a sharp contrast to Sloane's boom. Your Honor, the defense objects on the basis of foundation. This is a printout. We request the original native file of this email, with all attendant metadata, for immediate inspection. Sloane smiles. A quick dismissive flash of white. Your Honor, as we noted in discovery, this is a certified copy of a business record. It is perfectly admissible. As for the native file, he shrugs, a pantomime of regret. North River Wellness suffered a catastrophic, unrecoverable server crash during the transition after Mr. Vale's departure, a tragedy. This certified printout from the backup archives is all that remains. A lie, a bald, lazy, arrogant lie. I feel Kalen tense beside me. Judge Keene looks at the screen. Her face is a mask of neutrality. She, more than anyone, knows what a catastrophic server crash implies. She also knows what a certified copy can hide. She is at a crossroads. She looks at Sloane, then at me. Her expression doesn't change. The defense's objection is noted. The court will reserve its ruling on the admissibility of Exhibit A until such time as its provenance can be further argued. However, I will allow it to be used for illustrative purposes at this time. You may proceed. Mr. Sloane. The press scribbles. Reserved ruling. Sloane beams. He has won. He doesn't need the email to be admissible right now. He just needs it to be seen. Judge Keene has given him exactly that. She has allowed the poison to enter the room, to be photographed, to become the headline. My father leans back in his chair. He crosses his legs, and he smiles at me. It's the smile. The half-won match smile. The "you're just a lucky employee" smile. It's the smile of a man who knows the fix is in, who just watched the referee look the other way as he nudged his golf ball out of the rough. I meet his gaze. My face is stone. I do not blink. I let him have his moment. Let him savor the theatricality of it all. I watch his smile falter. Just a fraction. When his public condescension fails to provoke a reaction, Kalen leans in. His whisper is a furious hiss, shielded by the humming HVAC. She reserved her ruling? She should have thrown it out on its face. That server crash story is provable garbage. Arden. His eyes drop, for a millisecond, to the red wax-sealed envelope on my table. His meaning is clear. Is it time? Is it time to deploy the weapon? Is it time to expose her? I shake my head once, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. No, not yet. But she's biased. She's letting him build his house of cards. Kaylin protests. Exactly, I whisper back. Let him. This isn't the data. This is the narrative. Now, we challenge the data. Kaylin looks at me. A flicker of confusion, but he trusts me. He trusts my process. He stands. Your Honor, in light of the court's reserved ruling, the defense requests permission to counter this illustrative exhibit. We submit, as Defense Exhibit 1, a 2-page certified report from Halden and Pike, our forensic accounting firm, pertaining specifically to the server logs from which Exhibit A was allegedly sourced. I pick up the first document from my black binder and hand it to the bailiff. He carries it to Judge Keene. Sloan, mid-strut, stops. Objection? Relevance? We've already established the primary server failed. This report was drawn from the tertiary backup tapes, which Mr. Sloan's team certified in discovery as being unreadable. Halden and Pike, apparently, had better software, Kaylin says dryly. The courtroom murmurs, the see-saw. Judge Keene is reading. Her frown is no longer neutral. It is deep. It is angry. Because she is reading the truth. She is reading a timeline that proves perjury is happening in her courtroom. The Halden and Pike report is simple. It shows the log. File. Project Catalyst Strategy V Final. F. Original creation. October 10th, 2 years prior. File. FW. Project Catalyst. Phase 2. EML. Original creation. May 12th, 6 months prior. Last modified. May 12th, 6 months prior. Sent day. Date field. Manually altered. April 14th, 2 years prior. Originating IP 192.168.4.5. North River Executive Wing. Workstation 4. Modification time. 02:19 a.m. The room is silent. The data hangs in the air. A direct contradiction to the image on the screen. The press is confused, looking back and forth. This is too technical for a headline. Judge Keene lowers the paper. Her eyes are chips of ice. She looks at Sloan, who is no longer smiling. Order, she snaps, though no one was speaking. The court will take Defense Exhibit 1 under advisement, alongside Plaintiff's Exhibit A. She punted. Again, she saw direct proof of fabrication, of a 2:19 a.m. modification, and she reserved her ruling. She is compromised. She is trying to give my father every possible inch of rope, hoping he can win without her having to put her own thumb on the scale. Furthermore, Your Honor, Kaylin continues, not missing a beat. The defense calls our first witness, Dr. Elena Ramirez. This sends a new ripple, a digital forensics expert. The reporters' pens go up. This isn't a family squabble anymore. Dr. Ramirez is my opposite. She is warm, Hispanic, and dressed in a bright blue suit. She radiates an unimpeachable, cheerful competence. She takes the stand, is sworn in, and Kaylin begins. Doctor, you are a certified expert in digital cryptography and forensic data recovery. I am 20 years, MIT. Dr. Ramirez, did you examine the PDF file, the attachment to the alleged email in Plaintiff's Exhibit A? I did. Mr. Sloan claims the original server, and thus the original file, was lost. That is incorrect, Dr. Ramirez says pleasantly. The primary server was wiped, the backup archives. However, were intact. We recovered the original PDF file that Mr. Sloan's team claimed was unreadable. It was the basis of my analysis. Sloan is on his feet. Objection! This is... She's mischaracterizing the discovery. Overruled. Counselor. Judge Keene snips, her voice tight. She looks irritated, not at the perjury, but at the fact that we've complicated her simple, prearranged hearing. You opened this door when you claimed the server was destroyed. Proceed, Mr. Kalin. Kalin nods. Doctor, what did you find when you examined that original PDF? The PDF itself, the Project Catalyst plan, is a legitimate Northriver document. However, it contains an embedded digital signature, purporting to be that of Ms. Arden Vale, added at the same time as the fraudulent email creation. And was it her signature? No, Dr. Q. Ramirez says, as if explaining to a child. In a secure corporate environment, executives are issued cryptographic keys, a unique digital certificate, to sign documents. It's an unforgeable digital fingerprint, validated by a trusted third-party authority. This was not that. What was it? It was a self-signed certificate. It was created on the local machine at 2:19 a.m., not validated by any authority, and given the name Arden Vale. It's the digital equivalent of finding a blank driver's license on the sidewalk, typing a name on it with a label maker, and calling it a valid ID. The room is absolutely, profoundly silent. The sound of Sloane's case deflating is almost physical. The reporters aren't just writing. They're staring, trying to understand what just happened. Kalin smiles. So, the email container is a fabrication, and the digital signature on the document inside it is a forgery. Thank you, Doctor. No further questions. I don't look at the judge. I don't look at Kalin. I look at my father. His arrogance is gone. The smile is gone. His face is pale, a shade lighter than the fluorescent glare. He is sitting bolt upright, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. He isn't watching Sloane, who is flailing through a cross-examination. He is watching Dr. Ramirez. He is watching me. His mouth is dry. He lifts his hand, the one that pointed at me with such confidence, and reaches for his glass of water. His hand is steady, a lifetime of practiced control, but as he lifts the glass, his throat moves. A single visible dry swallow. He's not scared, not yet. But he's just realized, for the first time in his life, that his narrative is worthless. He just realized that I brought a microscope to his stage play. He just realized that I am not the daughter he raised. I am the risk manager I built myself to be. And we are just getting started. The cross-examination of Dr. Ramirez is a pathetic, desperate affair. Sloane, his face flushed and his confidence shattered, is sputtering. But, Doctor, this self-signed certificate you mention, isn't it just another kind of signature? Isn't it possible, common, even, for an executive to use one? Dr. Ramirez, still radiating cheerful competence, cocks her head. Is it common for an executive to print a $20 bill on their home printer and call it legal tender? No. This was not a signature, counselor. It was a digital counterfeit, created by an administrator, designed to look like one. There is no ambiguity. Sloane has lost. My father's entire case, built on fabricated evidence, has just been methodically, surgically, and politely disemboweled in public by a woman in a bright blue suit. But my eyes are not on Sloane. They are not on the press, who are writing so fast they seem to be vibrating. My eyes are fixed on Judge Marjorie Keene. She is, to all outward appearances, a picture of judicial calm. She is watching the exchange, her hands folded on the bench. But I am a risk manager. I don't just watch people. I watch patterns, and her pattern is broken. She is not watching the witness. She's watching me. Her gaze flicks to me, then to my father, then back to me, then to the exit. And beneath the high, imposing facade of the bench, something is happening. Her left hand, hidden from the gallery, is in her lap. She is holding her smartphone. I can just see the top of it. Her thumb is moving, a frantic, repetitive swipe, 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 a nervous tick. She's scrolling, or texting. She's looking for information, or she's giving an order. She knows the case is lost. She knows the perjury is now a matter of public record. She knows her entire courtroom has been compromised by my father's clumsy, arrogant fraud. She is no longer a judge. She is a co-conspirator whose partner just got caught. I watch her phone click off. She slides it under a stack of papers. She grips the edge of the bench. She is trying to will this hearing to a close, to get us out of the room so she can reassess, re-strategize. Sloane finally, pitifully, gives up. No further questions, Your Honor. Dr. Ramirez, you are excused, Judge Keene says. Her voice is tight. The court will hear arguments on Exhibit B, the consulting agreement, after a short recess. One moment, Your Honor, Kalin says, rising smoothly. Before recess, we have a final piece of evidence from Halden and Pike regarding the chain of custody for all of new evidence. It's a lie, a procedural stall. The court clerk, Ms. Alvarez, a woman in her late 50s with tired eyes and sensible shoes, moves automatically. She steps down from her desk to retrieve the document Kalin is holding. Her path takes her directly past my table. This is the window. She is an arm's length away, her eyes focused on Kalin, her mind on the recess, on coffee, on anything but the tectonic plates shifting beneath her feet. I lean forward, as if to retrieve a pen. I don't look at her. My voice is not a whisper. It is a sub-audible vibration, aimed only at her ear, perfectly masked by the HVAC's oppressive hum and the shuffling of papers as Sloane retreats to his table. Oak Ridge Fund. The effect is electric. It is not a sound. It is a shock. The clerk stops, her entire body, mid-stride, freezes, her foot, poised to step forward, hangs in the air for a terrible, eternal fraction of a second. She doesn't gasp. She doesn't turn. Her breathing hitches. It's a tiny inward suck of air, a sound of pure, undiluted panic. She knows the name. Of course she knows. She's the one who manages the judge's private calendar. She's the one who fields the calls. Her eyes, wide and terrified, snap to my face. I am not looking at her. I am looking straight ahead, my expression one of polite, professional patience. Then, before she can process, before her brain can form a denial, my left hand moves. I slide a small, neatly folded piece of paper across the dark wood of the defendant's table. It makes no sound. Her panicked gaze drops to it. It's not a threat. It's not an accusation. It is just a line of text, written in my own precise, blocky handwriting. Ref. JQC 441A. The case number. The receipt from the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. The blood drains from her face. She now understands. This is not blackmail. This is not a threat. This is a notification. I have not come here to make a deal. I have come here to execute a procedure. She is now, by her silence, an accessory to a formal investigation. Her hand, trembling so badly she nearly drops her clipboard, shoots out and snatches the note. She palms it, her face a mask of automated terror. She turns and takes the final, stumbling steps to the bench. Judge Keene is looking down, shuffling papers, annoyed at the delay. Yes, Ms. Alvarez, what is it? The clerk places Kalin's fake document on the bench, and then, her hand shaking, she places my small, folded note directly on top of it. And this, Your Honor, from the defendant. Keene looks up, her eyes sharp with irritation. She sees the note, a small, unprofessional scrap of paper. She unfolds it, her expression one of pure annoyance. She reads the 7 characters, JQC 441A. I watch her face. It is not a slow realization. It is a physical blow. The blood does not drain from her face. It is sucked out. She goes from a healthy, controlled 60-year-old woman to a gray, hollow-eyed ghost in the space of a single heartbeat. Her skin turns the color of the cheap, off-white acoustic tiles above her. Her mouth opens, a small O of silent horror. Her hand, the one that held the note, flies to her chest, pressing against her robes, as if to physically keep her heart from stopping. Her eyes snap up from the paper and lock with mine. Across the 30 feet of courtroom, a silent, terrible conversation takes place. Her eyes scream, "How?" My eyes reply, "Procedure." Her eyes, "What have you done?" My eyes, "My job." I am no longer a defendant. She is no longer a judge. We are just two people in a transaction, and I am the one holding the irreversible, non-negotiable proof of payment. The room is silent. Kaylin is waiting. Sloane is waiting. My father is looking back and forth between me and the judge, his face a mask of confusion. He doesn't know the code. He doesn't know the name. He just knows his performance has been interrupted by something real. Judge Keene fumbles with the switch on her microphone. There's a loud pop of static, a sound that makes the gallery jump. Then, click, the audio feed is dead. "Sidebar," she rasps. Her voice is unrecognizable. It's a dry, thin, terrified whisper. "Counselors, approach, now." Kaylin and I rise. Sloane and my father rise. We meet at the side of the bench, a small, tight huddle of suits, shrouded in the low hum of the HVAC. Judge Keene is visibly shaking. Her eyes are fixed on me, but she cannot bring herself to address me. She points a trembling finger at Kaylin. "Mr. Kaylin, what? What is this?" She's holding up the note. Kaylin doesn't look at the note. He looks at me. I give a single, almost imperceptible nod. This is the signal. "Your Honor," Kaylin says, his voice perfectly level. He turns, reaches back to our table, and retrieves the heavy manila envelope, the one sealed with 2 discs of dark red wax. He steps back to the bench and places it in front of her. The thud of the envelope on the wood is the loudest sound I have ever heard. It is a gavel strike of finality. Sloane cranes his neck. "What is that? What's going on?" My father, standing behind him, just stares at the envelope. He doesn't know what's in it, but he knows my obsessive, procedural nature, and he knows, for the first time, that he is not the predator in this room. "We have a filing, Your Honor," Kaylin says, his voice cold. "To be submitted in camera and under seal, it contains certified, irrefutable evidence of a profound and disqualifying judicial conflict of interest between this court and the plaintiff, Mr. Vale." Judge Keene stares at the red wax seals. She stares at the typed words, "To be opened only by order of the court." She knows it's the wire transfers. It's her husband's name. It's HLK Holdings. It's the $185,000 renovation permit for her new kitchen. Those 2 words, Oak Ridge Fund, were not an accusation. They were a key. I had just used it to unlock the armored door to her secret, filthy life, and now Kaylin was placing the contents on her desk for all of us to see. Her breathing is ragged. She reaches under the bench, her hand fumbling, and pulls out a tissue. She dabs at her upper lip, which is slick with a sudden, cold sweat. Sloane is apoplectic. A conflict? This is an outrage. This is a desperate, slanderous. "Be silent, counselor," Keene snaps, her voice cracking. She looks at my father, at his confused, suddenly panicked face. She looks at me. Her expression is one of pure, unadulterated hatred. Then she pulls herself up, one last vestige of her authority returning. "Return to your tables," she commands. We walk back. The courtroom is buzzing, a hornet's nest of whispers. The press is practically climbing over their seats. Judge Keene turns her microphone back on. The hiss fills the room. She fumbles for the gavel. Her hand is shaking so much she can barely lift it. Whack. The sound is a gunshot. It is not a strike of order. It is a strike of panic. This court is in immediate recess. Her voice is a reedy, strained thing, a ghost of the strong contralto from this morning. There has been a matter of a potential judicial conflict of interest raised. She is stumbling over the words, her eyes darting between me and the door to her chambers. This matter, it must be addressed, immediately. She doesn't wait for the bailiff. She doesn't say, all rise. She gathers her robes, her eyes locked on the red-sealed envelope she is clutching to her chest, and she flees. She bolts from the bench and disappears through the oak door behind her, a blur of black fabric. Ms. Alvarez, the clerk, her face ashen, snatches the rest of the papers and scrambles after her. The room is left in the buzzing, fluorescent aftermath. Sloane is staring, mouth agape. The press is shouting questions. And my father, Graham Vale, is standing alone at his table. He is staring at the empty judge's chair. His entire performance, his entire theater of war, has just been dismantled. The director has fled. The stage lights have been shattered, and he is left in the dark. Finally understanding, he just realized the play was never about him at all. The courtroom is a breached dam. Judge Keene's flight creates a vacuum, and the noise of the gallery rushes in to fill it. It's a low, animal sound, 100 people murmuring, shifting, rustling papers all at once. The press row is a frenzy. Reporters are on their feet, phones held high, some actually shouting questions at her retreating door. What conflict? Judge, what was in the filing? Is this related to North River? My father is a statue of concrete gray confusion. He is standing at his table, staring at the empty judge's chair. His entire strategy, his entire theater of public humiliation was built around this one person, this one controlled stage. The stage has just collapsed. He turns to Sloane, his face a mask of sudden, cold panic. Sloane, he hisses, his voice carrying in the sudden lull. What the hell is going on? Sloane, his face slick with sweat, looks like he's just seen his career flash before his eyes. He has no answers. He's just a performer whose script has been set on fire. A heavy-set bailiff steps forward, his voice a gravelly monotone that cuts through the panic. This court is in recess. All parties will remain seated. Counselors for both parties. He fixes his gaze on us. You will report to Judge Keene's chambers immediately. This is it. The procedure. The part that doesn't happen in the light. Kalen gathers his files. I stand, my black binder in one hand, and we follow the bailiff. We walk past my father. His eyes lock onto mine, searching, demanding. They are filled with a new emotion, one I've never seen directed at me. Genuine fear. We walk through the small, anonymous door behind the bench, down a short, carpeted hallway. The noise of the courtroom is instantly muffled, replaced by the humming of a vending machine. We are led into the judge's chambers. It's a large, corner office, lined with law books and framed pictures. A beautiful, floor-to-ceiling window overlooks the Grayford Town Square, and in the center of the room, on a wide mahogany desk, is a photograph in a silver frame. Judge Keene and her husband, Harold, on a sailboat, smiling, their arms around each other. Judge Keene is not sitting. She is standing behind the desk, her back to the window, cornered. The red wax-sealed envelope sits on her desk blotter, an accusation in paper form. She hasn't opened it. She can't. Ms. Alvarez, the clerk, stands by the door, wringing her hands, her face pale. Sloane and my father are ushered in behind us. The door clicks shut. The room is dead quiet. Kalen is the first to speak. His voice is no longer that of a defense attorney. It is the voice of a man executing a warrant. Your Honor, he begins, his tone formal. Pursuant to the Code of Judicial Conduct, specifically Canon 3E, which dictates that a judge must disqualify themselves in any proceeding in which their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Sloane finds his voice, though it's reedy. Objection. This is an ambush. This is a procedural. A slanderous. This, Kalen interrupts, his voice dropping, is a formal, emergency motion for recusal, filed under seal. He places a new, standard legal file on her desk. This motion contains the legal argument, the envelope. He nods to the red-sealed packet. Contains the evidence. As per procedure, we are required to open this in your presence, and in the presence of opposing counsel, to establish an undisputed chain of custody for the record. Judge Keene just stares at the envelope. She knows exactly what's inside. She knows about the kitchen. She knows about Oak Ridge. She gives a single, jerky nod. Kaylin takes a silver letter opener from her desk set. He doesn't tear the envelope. He slides the blade carefully under the wax, preserving the seals. He turns the envelope over and slides the contents onto the desk blotter, next to the picture of her smiling husband. It's not a dramatic pile of documents. It's a short, brutal financial map. Kaylin narrates, his voice cold, for the benefit of the clerk, who is now taking frantic notes for the official minute entry. Document 1. A certified copy of a wire transfer from North River Wellness to Oak Ridge Fund, LLC, in the amount of $185,000. The memo line reads, Final Renovation Consultation. Sloane's face goes white. He knows that name. Document 2. The Articles of Organization for Oak Ridge Fund, LLC from the State of Delaware, listing the managing partner as H.L.K. Holdings. Document 3. The Articles of Organization for H.L.K. Holdings from the County of Grayford, listing the sole principal and registered agent as Mr. Harold L. Keene. My father makes a small, strangled sound. He looks from the paper to the photograph of Harold Keene on the desk. Document 4, Kaylin continues. A copy of permit number R920 from the Grayford County Assessor's Office for a home renovation at 445 Willow Creek Drive. The applicants are listed as Harold and Marjorie Keene. The stated project cost is $185,000. The financing is listed as a private loan from H.L.K. Holdings. The room is silent. The only sound is Ms. Alvarez's pen scratching on her pad. And finally, Document 5, Kaylin says, placing the last piece of paper on the stack. A receipt of formal filing and open investigation from the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, case number JQC 441A. This is the end. This is not an accusation. It is a notification of an existing investigation. Sloane physically stumbles back a step. He's not an accessory to a threat. He's now a witness in a state-level ethics probe. This is, Judge Keene finally whispers, her hand on her throat. This is an allegation. It is a fact, Your Honor, Kaylin says, his voice flat. And as you know, the standard for recusal is not proof of guilt. It is the appearance of impropriety. The fact that your husband's firm received $185,000 from a shell company controlled by the plaintiff in your court, and that money was then demonstrably used to pay for your personal home renovation, is sufficient. The commission can handle the rest. Judge Keene looks at my father. Her eyes are not filled with hatred for me. They are filled with a deep, bottomless contempt for him, for his arrogance, for his sloppiness, for getting caught, and for dragging her down with him. She collapses into her leather chair. The fight is over. I will recuse myself, she says, her voice a dry rasp, to protect the integrity of the court. Thank you, Your Honor, Kaylin says. Ms. Alvarez, please note for the record, it is 11:08 a.m. All exhibits have been presented, reviewed by all parties, and are now being resealed. He slides the documents back into a new, larger evidence envelope. He seals it. He signs his name across the flap, and the date. He slides it to Ms. Alvarez, who signs it. He then slides it to Sloane. Sloane stares at it. This is... I... Sign it, Counselor, Kaylin says. Witness the seal. Sloane, his hand trembling, signs his name. The chain of custody is airtight. We walk back into the courtroom. The air is still electric. The press surges forward. Judge Keene enters from her door. She looks 10 years older. She walks to the bench, moving like she's walking through water. She fumbles for the gavel, grips it, and bangs it once. After an in-camera review, she reads from a piece of paper, her voice cracking. A significant and previously unknown potential for a conflict of interest has been brought to the court's attention. To preserve the sanctity and impartiality of these proceedings, she takes a ragged breath. I am immediately recusing myself from this case. Vale v. Vale, This matter is hereby transferred to the Chief Judge for immediate reassignment. All prior temporary rulings are vacated. This court is adjourned. The last part is the kill shot. All prior temporary rulings are vacated. Her ruling that allowed the faked email, Exhibit A, to be shown? Gone. Her ruling that reserved judgment on our forensic proof? Gone. The slate is wiped clean. She flees the bench. The room explodes. What conflict? What rulings? Judge, what about Northriver? The press swarms Kalen and me. He just holds up a hand. The motion is under seal. We have no comment on the recusal. The proceedings will continue with a new, impartial judge. Across the room, I see my father. He is alone, standing in the wreckage. Sloan is grabbing his briefcase, his face pale. What the hell was in that envelope? Sloan, my father demands, grabbing his arm. Sloan rips his arm away, his eyes wide with fear. Don't talk to me, he hisses. Don't ever talk to me again. We have a problem. Graham, a real problem. He turns and pushes his way through the crowd, abandoning his client. My father is left standing there, the plaintiff, the star of the show. Now just a confused old man in an expensive suit, with no lawyer and no judge. As the room clears, a different clerk, a man I don't recognize, approaches Kalen. He hands him a newly stamped court order. Kalen reads it, and a small, tight smile touches his lips. It's done, he says to me, his voice low. The chief judge didn't wait. He just issued a parallel preservation order for all electronic records, financial and otherwise, for North River Wellness, Oak Ridge Fund LLC, and HLK Holdings. They can't delete a single file. They can't wipe the server this time. I don't smile. I don't feel a rush of victory. The adrenaline, the cold, sharp focus that has kept me awake for the last 6 months simply drains away. I am suddenly, profoundly tired. I reach out and put my hand on the scarred wood of the defendant's table to steady myself. My father thought the law was a stage he could control. He didn't understand. The law isn't a stage. It's a machine. It's a set of procedures. And today, for the first time in his life, he pulled a lever he didn't understand, and the whole, complex, unforgiving mechanism just did exactly what it was designed to do. I take a deep breath. The air in my lungs doesn't feel like recycled, fluorescent poison anymore. It just feels like air. I just unplugged the machine. The chaos of Judge Keene's recusal lasted exactly 48 hours. The press was a feeding frenzy of speculation. My father, I was told, had hired a new, lower-grade criminal lawyer just to manage the fallout. Then, the chief judge acted. The case, Vale v. Vale, was reassigned. The new name on the docket was Judge Daniel Rook. I knew of him. Rook was the antidote to Keene. He was a former federal prosecutor, a man with a reputation for being cold, precise, and utterly intolerant of what he called theatrical lawyering. He was thin, wore rimless glasses, and spoke in a quiet monotone that demanded absolute silence. He was, in short, my father's worst nightmare. He was a proceduralist. Our first appearance in his courtroom, 1 week after the sidebar, was like stepping into an ice bath. The buzzing gallery, the whispering press. Rook silenced it all with a single bored look over his glasses. I have read the file, he announced to the room, his voice flat. I have read the motion for recusal, which I have ordered to remain under seal indefinitely. I have also read the allegations of fabricated evidence from the defense, and I have read the plaintiff's original theatrical complaint. He looked at my father, then at me. There was no warmth, there was no bias, there was only disgust. This court, he said, is not a stage for a family drama. It is a place of fact, and at present, the facts are a contaminated disaster. My father's new, less polished lawyer, a man named Corley, half rose. Your Honor, the plaintiff stands by his exhibits. Rook cut him off without looking at him. I don't care what the plaintiff stands by. Counselor, I am not Judge Keene. I am not reserving any rulings. I am issuing one. I am appointing an independent third-party forensic expert, a special master, to be paid for by the plaintiff. This expert will take possession of all digital evidence from both parties. They will review the North River backup servers, the plaintiff's alleged printouts, and the defense's black binder. They will produce a single, binding report. Until I have it, this case is stayed. I want this room, and this record, sterilized. Corley's objection was a pathetic squeak. Rook murdered it with a stare. This was the first domino. My father had bought a judge to rig the game. I had reset the game with a judge who was the rules. The special master's report was filed 10 days later. It was not a performance. It was a 20-page PDF, electronically filed, and it was the most beautiful document I have ever read. It was a clinical, passionless execution. Exhibit A. Email. Confirmed as a composite fabrication. Metadata analysis shows a sent date field manually backdated. File creation timestamp 0219 AM. And originating IP, North River Exec Wing, are inconsistent with defendant's termination date. File is fraudulent. Exhibit B. Contract. Forensic graphology analysis of the wet signature shows significant hesitation, unnatural pen lifts, and pressure inconsistencies, indicative of a high-probability simulation, i.e., a forgery. Furthermore, ink dating analysis shows the ink is less than 6 months old, not 2 years. My father's entire case, the pillars of his public accusation, were not just discredited, they were ruled fraudulent by the court's own hand. Judge Rook did not stop there. He immediately forwarded the special master's report, along with the perjury findings, to the Grayford County District Attorney's Office. The second domino. The DA, already galvanized by the state-level probe into Judge Keene, moved with astonishing speed. This was no longer a civil matter of Vale Vise. Vale. It was now the People Vive. Graham Vale. They didn't just investigate the perjury. They acted on the preservation order Kalin had secured. They launched a full investigation into North River's financial past, starting with the 2 names from my sealed motion, Oak Ridge Fund and HLK Holdings. They called in witnesses. The first one to crack was Alan Tierney, the former North River comptroller, a small, nervous man with a perpetually damp upper lip. He had been my father's financial wizard, the one who made the glitches happen. Granted full immunity in exchange for his testimony, he sat before a grand jury and he sang. Kalin got the transcript summary. Tierney testified that my father maintained several off-book funds. The Oak Ridge account, he said, was the largest. Mr. Vale called it his lubrication fund. Tierney testified. It was for, costs, for getting things done, smoothing things over, costs that couldn't go through standard AP. When the DA's investigators, armed with Tierney's testimony and my financial map, executed a search warrant on the old North River offices, they found the physical proof. "You're not going to believe this," Kalin said to me on the phone, a rare note of humor in his voice. They went into the sub-basement records room. The investigators found a heavy-duty shredder. It was unplugged, but one of them put his hand on the motor casing. It was warm. They seized the shredder bin. Inside, among the confetti of paper, were half-shredded bank statements for Oak Ridge Fund and, miraculously, several drafts of the forged consulting contract, Exhibit B, with handwritten notes in the margin. My father, in his arrogance, had tried to destroy the evidence after the court had already preserved it. The third, fourth, and fifth dominoes fell so fast they blurred. The State Securities Commission, alerted by the DA's findings, opened its own formal investigation into North River Wellness, citing credible evidence of shareholder fraud, bribery, and undisclosed related party transactions during my father's tenure. The press, which had been locked out of the sealed motion, now had everything it needed. The narrative exploded. The Norcrest Ledger ran a front page. Above the fold headline, "The Oak Ridge Fund, Bribery, Forgery, and the Fall of Graham Vale." The Stonebrook Daily was more direct. How a family civil suit exposed a judicial corruption scandal. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece. The minority shareholders of North River, the ones who had lost 80% of their investment when my father's glitches finally caught up to him, filed a massive $50 million class action lawsuit. They named Graham Vale and the entire former board of directors, accusing them of gross negligence, corporate waste, and a conspiracy of silence to defraud investors. My father's world was on fire. His reputation was ash. His finances were frozen. His former colleagues were running from him, issuing public statements about their shock and disappointment. And through all of this, the original case, Vale, was still on the docket. We returned to Judge Rook's courtroom. It was a different place. The gallery was packed, but silent. The press was there, but they were no longer watching a family squabble. They were documenting a post-mortem. My father was there. He looked gray. His expensive suit hung on him, as if he'd lost 20 pounds. His new lawyer, Corley, looked like he was about to be physically ill. Judge Rook looked down from the bench. "Mr. Corley," he said, his voice flat, "given the special master's report, which has found your client's primary evidence to be fraudulent, and given the subsequent referrals, what is the plaintiff's position?" Corley stood, shuffling papers. Your Honor, given the ongoing related matters, we would move to dismiss the complaint without prejudice." "Denied," Rook said instantly. "You don't get to burn down the building and then walk away because you got caught. The motion to dismiss is denied. The case proceeds. Mr. Kalin, the floor is yours." This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. "Thank you, Your Honor," Kalin said, standing up. "My client is not interested in a dismissal. She is interested in a summary judgment. She is counterclaiming for malicious prosecution, defamation, and all associated legal fees. And to clarify the matter of stolen intellectual property once and for all, the defense would like to submit 2 final, non-fraudulent exhibits." He placed the first one before the clerk. Defense Exhibit 12, a fully executed, registered, and granted patent from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, patent number 11-458-922. He let the number hang in the air. "The patent is for a dynamic risk modeling and predictive algorithm. The registered inventor is Arden L. Vale. It was filed 18 months ago. It is, by its trade name, Catalyst T47. A gasp went through the courtroom. The name. The project he claimed I stole. "And Defense Exhibit 13, Kalin continued, placing the second document down. "Ms. Vale's original employment contract with Hearthline Labs. I draw the court's attention to Section 4, Subsection B. Prior inventions. This clause explicitly lists, by name, Catalyst T47 as intellectual property developed and owned solely by Ms. Vale prior to her employment. It is explicitly excluded from her work-for-hire agreement." It was over. I hadn't just proven he lied. I had proven, with unassailable, federally registered documents, that the very genius he claimed I stole from him had been mine all along. The entire order of the room had inverted. The power, the leverage, the truth. It had all shifted. My father had come into this court as a plaintiff, a star performer on a stage he thought he owned. He was now just a defendant, in this case and so many others. The witness chair he had intended for me, the one he wanted to use to humiliate me, was no longer a spotlight. It was an X-ray machine. It was a cold, hard place where lies came to be exposed, where narratives were stripped down to the bone, and where the only thing that mattered was the cold, clean, verifiable truth. And my father, under that light, had been revealed to have nothing at all. The air in Judge Rook's courtroom is not air. It is a vacuum. It is a taut, vibrating piano wire stretched to its absolute limit, humming at a frequency just below human hearing. The fluorescent lights seem brighter, harsher. Every sound is amplified. The creak of the old wooden pews, the rustle of a legal pad, the sound of my own breathing, measured and slow. My father, Graham Vale, is sitting at the plaintiff's table. He is a husk. His suit, once a symbol of his power, now looks like a costume, 2 sizes too large for the man shrinking inside it. His lawyer, Corley, is staring at his own hands, his face the color of old parchment. Judge Rook looks up from the final document. He removes his rimless glasses and polishes them. A deliberate, slow, agonizing gesture. He puts them back on. His eyes are not angry. They are not sympathetic. They are the eyes of a surgeon about to close a long, messy incision. I have reviewed the special master's report, he begins, his voice a flat, unemotional monotone that cuts through the silence. I have reviewed the defendant's patents and employment contracts, and I have reviewed the plaintiff's original fraudulent claims. He does not pause for effect. He moves like a machine. On the matter of Vale versus Vale, Civil Action 22-914, the court finds as follows. 1. The plaintiff's entire complaint is found to be without merit. Based on evidence this court's special master has deemed fraudulent, fabricated, and perjurious, the plaintiff's requests for declaratory judgment, constructive trust, and monetary damages are hereby denied in their entirety. 2. The defendant's counterclaim for malicious prosecution is granted. This court finds that the plaintiff, Mr. Graham Vale, initiated this lawsuit in bad faith, with malicious intent, and with the primary, stated purpose of destroying the defendant's professional reputation. 3. The plaintiff will bear all, and I repeat, all legal costs, fees, and penalties associated with this action for both parties, as well as punitive damages to be determined in a separate hearing. I am, in parallel, ordering a freeze on all known assets of Mr. Vale, pending that hearing, to ensure payment. My father makes a small, choking sound, the price tag for his performance. 4. This court hereby issues a permanent restraining order against Mr. Graham Vale. He is barred from contacting, approaching, threatening, or interacting with the defendant, Ms. Arden Vale, her colleagues, or her employer, Hearthline Labs. He is further barred from accessing, altering, or ordering the destruction of any financial or digital records related to this case or its associated entities. Rook pauses, lifts a single sheet of paper. 5. The special master's report, and all attendant findings of perjury, evidence tampering, and forgery are hereby formally referred to the Grayford County District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. This court notes that office is already aware of the matter. He sets the paper down. It's over. Rook looks up, not at me, not at my father, but at the bailiff. The civil matter is concluded. We will now move to... The spell is broken. The gallery exhales as one. The press doesn't run. They rise, a single, black-suited mass, and begin a fast, orderly retreat to the hallway, to the steps, where their cameras are waiting. Kaylin touches my arm. Arden. I stand. I feel steady. I pick up my black binder. I walk out of the courtroom. Kaylin at my side. We step into the hall. It's a wall of light and noise. Flashes strobe, turning the moment into a series of jagged, silent photographs. Microphones are shoved in my face. A bouquet of black foam. Ms. Vale, what's your reaction? How much are the damages? Did you know the evidence was fake from the beginning? I don't look at them. I look at the single, central camera with the red light. I step up to the cluster of microphones. I don't need to shout. The silence is instant, a held breath. I'm not here to discuss my family, I say, my voice as flat and cold as the marble floor. I'm here to state a fact. Today, procedure did exactly what it was designed to do. It was presented with a lie, and it found the truth. Thank you. I turn to leave. Kaylin is already clearing a path. And then he is there. My father. He is standing in the middle of the hallway, having been pushed out by the wave of reporters. He looks lost. His new lawyer, Corley, is nowhere to be seen. Our eyes meet. The flashes are still popping, but the world narrows to the two of us, to the 30 feet of stone that has always separated us. He takes 2 steps toward me. He stops. The reporters fall back, sensing the new, terrible climax. He leans in, his voice a venomous, broken whisper, meant only for me. "You killed me." His face is a ruin. The charm, the power, the arrogance. It's all gone, burned away, leaving only this charred, terrified old man. I look at him. I see the man who nudged the golf ball, the man who called me at 2:17 a.m., the man who tried to destroy me for sport, to take what was mine. I lean in, my voice just as quiet, just as cold. "No, Dad, I just flipped the switch." I turn away from him. And at that exact second, a new sound ripples through the hall. It is not a shout. It is the electronic, vibrating bzz, bzz, bzz of 24 cell phones on the press row, all receiving the same alert. A reporter, the one from the Stonebrook Daily, gasps. He looks up from his phone, his eyes wide, not at me, but at the greater, unfolding story. "Holy God," he says. "It's on the wire. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct has just issued a formal confirmation. They are recommending the immediate disbarment of former Judge Marjorie Keene, citing an active, ongoing criminal investigation into bribery and conspiracy directly linked to," he squints, "the Oak Ridge Fund." The name, my 2 words, spoken aloud in the open air, a public execution. It is too much. The moment is too heavy. From the back of the hall, someone, a clerk or a junior lawyer, fumbles. There is the distinct, sharp clatter of a single ballpoint pen hitting the stone floor. It echoes in the sudden silence, a dry, hollow, final sound, the sound of a period at the end of a long, terrible sentence. I look back at my father. He heard it. He heard the name. He understands that this is not the end. It is the beginning of his next case. He looks around, his eyes wide with a new, primal terror. He searches the crowd. "Corley?" he calls out, his voice weak. "Sloan?" But Corley is gone. Sloan is already negotiating with the DA. There is no one. He is, for the first time in his entire charmed life, completely and utterly alone. I see a man in a trench coat standing by the main exit. He's not a reporter. His face is calm, watchful. He's an investigator, the one I met from the DA's office. I walk past the microphones. I walk past my father. I walk to the investigator. I am holding a new envelope. It is sealed, just like the first one, but this one is larger. "A full certified copy of my binder," I say to him. "The server logs, the Halden and Pike report, the patent, everything, for your file." He nods, his eyes respectful. He takes the envelope without a word. The transaction is complete. Kaylin is at my side. "Arden, let's go." I turn. I walk toward the heavy bronze doors of the courthouse. I do not look back. As my hand touches the cold metal, I hear one last sound from the courtroom behind me. Whack. It is not the desperate, panicked crack of Judge Keene's gavel. It is the simple, wooden, final thud of Judge Daniel Rooks, the sound of a machine being turned off, the sound of a file being closed. No screams, no tears, just the sharp, clean, undeniable sound of procedure. Finally, mercifully, complete. I push open the heavy, bronze-plated door. The metal is cold, a stark contrast to the superheated, pressurized air of the hallway I'm leaving behind. The door swings shut behind me with the heavy, oiled whoosh of a bank vault, and the sound of the media frenzy inside, the shouting, the questions, the popping flashes, are all sheared off, cut to an abrupt, muffled silence. I am standing on the top step of the Grayford County Courthouse. For a long second, I just stand there. The world rushes in. It is 2:30 in the afternoon. The sky is a flat, indifferent Westvale gray. The wind, a sharp, cold November gust, hits me full in the face. It's real. It's not the dead. Recirculated, fluorescent-scented air of the courtroom, an atmosphere thick with perjury and stale coffee. This air smells like wet pavement and diesel exhaust, and the first hint of snow. It's the smell of the real world. The wind is so strong it bullies my hair across my face, stinging my cheeks, and it carries with it, or perhaps just blows away, the last lingering scent that has clung to me for months, the smell of old, decaying paper files, the smell of the archives, the smell of my father's lies. The wind just takes it. I pull the collar of my coat tighter. My hands, I realize, are empty. There is no black binder. There is no red wax-sealed envelope. They are in the possession of the DA's investigator. My hands feel strange. Light. Ms. Vale, just one more question. A reporter, a young woman from the Stonebrook Daily, has scrambled out of a side door, her notebook flapping open, pen poised. She's out of breath, her eyes wide with the thrill of the chase. She's the one who had been live tweeting the hearing. She runs up the steps, stopping a respectful 5 feet away. The wind whips her hair, too. Ms. Vale, she pants. I was in the hall. I heard the alert. The Oak Ridge Fund. That was you, wasn't it? The rumor? The sidebar. They said you whispered 2 words to the clerk that made the judge collapse. She leans in, her pen ready. This is it. The human interest. The part her readers will understand. The dramatic, cinematic moment of confrontation. What were they, Ms. Vale? What were those 2 words? I look at her. She is so young. She's looking for a story. For a triumphant, gotcha moment. She's looking for the script from a movie. I owe her the truth, but the truth is not a movie script. I answer her, my voice flat, almost tired. The wind snatches the words from my mouth. Oak Ridge Fund. Her face falls. She looks confused. Her pen stops hovering. What? Just Oak Ridge Fund? Yes. But what does it mean? She asks. Desperate. She's looking for the narrative. It's the name of a Delaware-based LLC, I say. A shell corporation. It was the primary vehicle for the illicit payments. She just stares at me. I've given her the answer, the literal, 100% accurate, devastatingly powerful answer, and it is completely, utterly unsatisfying to her. She wanted a word like guilty or it's over or checkmate. She wanted a soundbite. I gave her a line item from a ledger. I turn away from her disappointed face. I feel no triumph. I feel no rush of adrenaline. I feel no cold. Satisfying vindication. The space inside me where all that anger and focus lived is now just empty. There is no joy in this. There is no pleasure. You don't celebrate when you take out the trash. You don't throw a party when you disinfect a contaminated lab. You just feel the quiet, profound relief of the work being done, of the threat being neutralized. This was not a game. He was not a player. He was a systemic risk, a bug in the code that threatened to corrupt the entire database. I did not beat him. I contained him. I isolated his code, and I submitted the patch. The system is now running as intended. I pull my phone from my coat pocket. The screen is bright in the gray afternoon light. A dozen missed calls from Kaylin. Alerts from news sites. I ignore them all. I open a new text message to the head of my compliance team at Hearthline Labs. My fingers are steady. Open public access to the Q4 Transparency Report. Full audit. Post it tomorrow. 8 a.m. Let's show them how it's done. I hit send. My father built his empire on secrets, on shell companies, on backroom deals. I will build mine on radical, verifiable transparency. I will not just win. I will be the antidote. As I slide the phone back into my pocket, it vibrates. A new text. From an unknown number. A number I don't recognize, but I know. I look at the screen. One word. Why? I stare at the message. A single, typed word. It is the plea of a man who has lost a game he didn't even know he was playing. He is looking for a motive he can understand. Greed? No. I gave up his money. Hate? No. Hate is hot, and I am cold. Revenge? No. Revenge is an emotion. This was an algorithm. He will spend the rest of his life in a cell or in a lonely, ruined house, trying to understand why I did it. He will never, ever understand that I did it because it was the procedure, because he was a 2:17 a.m. phone call asking me to violate the core of my being, because he was a risk, and I am a risk manager. As I watch, the bubble with the word "why" vanishes. A new, small, gray text appears. Message was deleted. He couldn't even commit to the question. A final, pathetic act of cowardice. He's already trying to shred the evidence of his own confusion. I don't delete the thread. I just block the number. It's a procedural fix. I reach into my inner pocket and pull out my small, black notebook, the one I carry everywhere. I flip it open. It's filled with data points, timestamps, server addresses, and on the last page, a single line I wrote this morning, before I ever stepped into the courthouse. Procedure is your friend. It was my shield. It was my sword. It was my map. My father believed in people, in charm, in leverage, in exceptions, all things that break. I put my faith in the procedure, in the logs, in the math, in the rules, things that are absolute, and they held. I click my pen. I close the notebook. I put it away. I stand on the top step for one more second. I look at the gray stone facade of the courthouse. It is just a building, a box made of stone, filled with rules. I walk down the steps, my heels making a sharp, solitary click-clack on the stone. It's the only sound. There is no swell of orchestral music. There are no fireworks. There is no one waiting for me with a hug. The heavy bronze-plated door of the courthouse hisses shut behind me. The final definitive thud of the lock engaging, a full stop. I walk toward the street. My hands are empty, my shoulders, which have been tensed for 3 years, pulling down toward my spine under the weight of his name, his threats, his legacy. They feel different. They feel light. It's a strange, disorienting, physical sensation. It is not joy. It is an absence. It is the feeling of a heavy, 100-pound rucksack, filled with forged documents and old betrayals and a 2:17 a.m. phone call, being unclipped from my back and left to rot on the courthouse steps. I am just Arden Vale, 32 years old, Director of Ethics and Risk Management. I walk down the sidewalk. I blend into the sparse afternoon crowd. Just another woman in a dark coat, heading home from a long day at the office. Revenge, I think, is a messy, emotional, pointless word. It's a narrative for movies. This was not revenge. This was a closing entry. The books are balanced. The accounts are settled. The file is closed. Justice has spoken, and at the exact same moment, the work is finally and completely done. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel and connect us. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. And if you really want to support the story and help it get heard by more people, please hit that hype button. Your support means the world.